The number had been changing for 18 months. Not by much and not every day, but always in one direction. I checked it on a Tuesday morning before school, noted the figure, and put the phone in my pocket. No one else knew it existed. I had designed it that way on purpose. At Pinnacle Academy I had a role. It was not a prestigious one. Marcus Shen, my cousin, technically, in the way that word stops meaning much after a certain kind of family meeting, needed his coffee fetched, his slides reviewed, his group project rescaled from ambition to reality. I did these things. They did not require my attention. "There are students here," Professor Aldwell said one morning, addressing the Commerce and Innovation Seminar, "who rely more on their family's name than on their own work. We know who we mean." He was very careful not to look at me when he said it. The pitch competition coordinator handed out slots on a Thursday. Mine was the last one on the list, the graveyard time slot, the fourth session, the one where the judges had already made their decisions and were thinking about lunch. I thanked her and went to class. She found me in the library at 9:30 on a Wednesday, which was when I always worked on the algorithm. I should clarify, I was not working on the algorithm. I had a differential equations textbook open and the algorithm running in a background tab, which are not the same thing. "What is that?" she said, sitting down across from me without asking. I told her what it was. Not all of it, not the code, not the 18 months of returns, not the correspondence I had been keeping with a fund in Seoul, but the concept, what it was designed to do and why it worked. She asked good questions. I remember thinking that. I remember the warmth of being understood and choosing, deliberately, to let it matter. I should have noted what kind of questions they were. Marcus announced his venture pitch entry on a Monday morning in front of the full seminar. "A trading algorithm," he said. He used the word proprietary. He described its logic in careful, simplified terms, simple enough that the room understood the concept, not so simple that anyone would notice the description stopped exactly where my conversation with Nina had ended. I wrote nothing in my notebook. I looked at the whiteboard. I let the information settle. I had accounted for a lot of contingencies in the last 3 years. I had not accounted for this one, which meant I had made an error. I filed that under useful information and moved on. The complaint arrived in my school email on a Friday at 4:47 p.m. The Shen team had filed a formal academic misconduct report. I had, it alleged, been shown an early version of their algorithm concept and later stolen and polished it, claiming it as my own original work. I read it twice. I noted the phrasing, "been shown" rather than "shown by whom." I noted the timestamp "end of business Friday," which minimized the window for a response before the week closed. Then I went home and backed up every file to 3 separate locations, which I had already done, but repetition in these matters is not wasted effort. The disciplinary hearing was on a Tuesday. Professor Aldwell chaired it. He asked careful questions and listened carefully to the answers, in the way a person listens when they have already decided what the answers mean. Marcus's team spoke fluently. Their detail stopped at the same depth as before. I noticed this. I also noticed that Aldwell's follow-up questions were directed at me and not at them, which told me something useful about the shape of this proceeding. When it was my turn, I said I would be providing written documentation and preferred to do so formally. Aldwell noted this and wrote something down. I counted 4 things in that room that would be useful later. I said none of them out loud. My access to the school's shared project database was suspended pending the review. The notification arrived at 8:12 a.m. on a Wednesday. By 8:13, I had confirmed that the original codebase, with its full commit history dating back 22 months, was intact across 3 external locations. The timestamps were server-side and could not be modified retrospectively. I had a habit from the first year of living alone of assuming that any given situation might one day need to be proven to a third party. It had cost me nothing to maintain. It was paying off now. She found me outside the science building on a Thursday. I stopped walking when I saw her. I did not make her chase me. "I thought he would share the credit," she said. "I thought you'd both be on the entry. I didn't know he was going to. I know, I said. She waited. I did not add anything. Ethan, I'm sorry. I know, I said again. I went to class. She did not follow me, which was the right choice. I had already accounted for what she had done, and the accounting was complete. There was nothing in the ledger that required her to say more or me to hear it. I spent the following 2 evenings mapping Marcus's pitch deck against what I knew of my own algorithm. The gap appeared on page 4 of his technical appendix. He had described the position sizing logic correctly, in terms, but the parameters he listed were defaults, the ones that shipped with any standard library. My version used a custom weighting function I had built over 9 months of testing. The defaults produced mediocre returns. Mine did not. Any judge who asked Marcus to explain that function, live in the room, would get an answer that stopped exactly where his knowledge stopped. I made a note. The email from Solomon Parks Fund arrived on a Friday at 6 p.m. They wanted to formalize the licensing arrangement and proposed doing it at the pitch event, publicly, in front of the selection panel, to establish clear provenance. I read the email. I did not answer it. The offer was the right weapon. Accepting it publicly would convert the hearing's ambiguous ruling into an irrelevant footnote. The licensing agreement predated Marcus's announcement by 8 months, and it would be on the public record in front of every faculty member and judge in the room. But accepting it would also end the version of my life in which no one noticed me. I had built that version carefully. I was not certain I was ready to disassemble it. I left the email open and went to sleep. The disciplinary committee issued its findings on a Monday. No expulsion, insufficient evidence to determine origin with certainty, a formal note on my academic record, removal from the scholarship advancement track pending further review. I read the ruling at 7:45 a.m. before school. I put my phone in my pocket and went to the kitchen and made coffee. In the hallway outside the seminar room, I passed Marcus's team. They were celebrating, quietly, tastefully, the way people celebrate when they know the cameras are on them. Marcus caught my eye once. I held it for a moment longer than he expected, then went to class. I spent the next 11 days rebuilding my pitch from zero. Not because I had lost anything. I had not lost anything. But the version Marcus's team had described could, in some narrow argument, be claimed as something they had seen first. So I built past it, a version that incorporated 9 months of optimization I had never explained to anyone, with documentation at every step, time-stamped in real time as I worked. It was better than what I would have submitted originally. There is a certain utility in being underestimated. Marcus found me in the library on a Thursday evening, which meant he came alone, which meant the family had sent him and told him not to make it official. He sat down across from me and did not waste my time. "Transfer out," he said. "Transfer somewhere that fits your situation better." Quietly, "The family will formally acknowledge the connection. It's a reasonable outcome." I looked at him for a moment. He was right that it was a reasonable outcome from the perspective of someone who had concluded I would rather be acknowledged than be correct. "No," I said. He waited to see if I would add something. I did not. He left. I went back to work. The algorithm ran in the background while I sat at the table and looked at Sol's unanswered email. I was not afraid of losing the competition. The evidence was clear, the documentation was complete, and the flaw in Marcus's appendix was the kind of thing a competent judge would find in under 3 minutes of questioning. What I was thinking about was the elevator, the morning after. The version of myself who walked into Pinnacle Academy on Wednesday with a public record, a licensing agreement in the news cycle, and a name that people looked up rather than passed. I had been invisible for 3 years. It had not been comfortable. It had been useful. I opened the email. I typed one line, *I accept. Thank you for the timing. *, I sent it. Then I closed the laptop and went asleep. Marcus's team presented in the prime slot at 9 a.m. The room was full. Aldwell sat in the front row. The presentation was polished, the level of polish that costs money and practice, but not, I noted, the kind that comes from understanding what you are presenting. The judges applauded. 2 of them wrote things down. Solomon Park, seated at the end of the judge's table, wrote nothing. I walked up at 11:17. The room had thinned. A couple of judges were checking their phones. I connected my laptop to the projector, opened the first slide, and began. 18 months ago, I said, I built a trading algorithm. I have its full commit history, its performance record, and a licensing agreement with Park Capital, signed 8 months ago. I am going to show you all three. The phones went face down. I walked through the documentation in sequence. The original code base. The commit timestamps reaching back 22 months. The performance returns over 18 months, not projections, not models, actual figures from a live implementation. Then the custom waiting function, the one absent from Marcus's appendix, and what it did to the return profile versus the defaults. Aldwell spoke once. Perhaps we could move on to the... I have 2 more slides on this section. I said, in the same register I would use to say anything else. He did not speak again. The judges were asking questions now. Real ones. Solomon Park set a document on the table. He did not stand up to do it. He simply placed it there, flat, visible. This is the signed licensing agreement between my fund and Ethan Shen, executed 8 months ago. The technical specifications it references are identical to what you have just seen. He looked down the table at the other judges. I would like to hear the other team explain the position sizing function on page 4 of their appendix. Marcus's team was called back to the room. The lead presenter stood at the front. The question was read to him. He spoke for 90 seconds. He described the defaults. The judges deliberated for 22 minutes. Ethan Shen, first place, venture pitch competition, Pinnacle Academy. The Shen family entry, disqualified, academic dishonesty. Professor Aldwell referred to the school board's conduct committee for review of his role in the disciplinary proceedings. These were the facts. I wrote them down in the same order they were announced. She found me near the door as people were filtering out. Cecilia Shen, the family's head of external relations, in a dark coat, which meant she had come directly and had not planned to stay. Ethan, she said warmly, the way someone says a name when they want it to carry more weight than it does. We're so proud. You know that you've always been one of ours. Thank you. I said, which was accurate. The judge nearest to me asked a follow-up question about the optimization timeline. I turned to answer it. When I looked back, Cecilia was making her way toward the exit. I did not watch her go. I was the last one out. The hallway was empty by the time I reached the elevator. The algorithm had been running all day. I checked the number on my phone, slightly higher than this morning, consistent with the model. I put the phone in my pocket. The elevator doors opened. I stepped in. The doors closed.